Chirp number 2, Brandon Carlo's just been flat out terrific all season long. He's just been really, really good. I think he's at a +12 to lead the team. You see that on YouTube. 26 games played. He's averaging 20 plus minutes per game. Just a horse on a penalty kill. He had almost 8 minutes of penalty killing time the other day against Arizona, I think it was. He's just been so good, and really has quieted a lot of critics.
I think he is underrated. And I'll tell you what, if you're watching on YouTube, you should be watching on YouTube, because right now you would look at this picture of Brandon Carlo and you're like, that is the sexiest man alive.
Really?
Alive. 2023, Brandon Carlo. I mean, look at the guy. He's just a stud. Anyway, if you're not watching on YouTube, you just have to use your imagination. That's all.
Yeah.
But you should be watching on YouTube.
Yeah.
But he has been great. And I think he has taken the be more physical in his net front to heart. I think he's been more physical this year than he has been in the past. And I think that's helped his game. I think it's given him a little more room. I think he's helping out in the net front, being a little more physical. And he needs to do that. He's a big guy. He can take up space. He's got a long stick. That's what she said. But he's got a lot going for him as far as, the size and the skating ability. And if he can add that physicality to it, which he has done this year, he turns into a really complete shutdown defenseman.
I'll tell you what he's really great at is behind the net and in the penalty kill. Behind the net, gets the pucks, and he's really good at sending up the center of the ice, like really good at that clearing thing. Like he's really good at that, and he's been much better with the puck, decisiveness, decision making passes out of the zone. Like he's just been so good, and I don't know. He was better last year. I think the Cassidy thing is definitely a factor. Not playing for him anymore. But I think it's just being so. He's just being. Here's the thing that's always been true about Carlo. When he's in and out of the lineup, he follows out of rhythm. Like he doesn't. He needs to put 20 games under his belt in a row. Good, and then he's fine. But there's been too many times that he'd be out of the lineup, or he'd be nicked up, or he'd be just not being able to get a rhythm. I think he's that type of player.
Yeah. What the question I was going to ask is, do you think with it being the second year now in Montgomery's system that he feels a little more comfortable, and that's kind of helped him too?
I think
comfort is, like you said, comfort is a big thing for him. So
sure. Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's the case. And he's been playing with Lindholm, who's he's an excellent player. Like he's a good player, and he does a lot of the offensive. He's more of an offensive type of player. So I think that takes a little bit of his. And he, when he plays with Grzelcyk, Grzelcyk's a smaller guy. He's, Carlo has to take on more, I think, physically. And although Lindholm's not super physical, he's a bigger guy. He's a guy who can carry the puck and play heavy minutes and that type of thing. And I think it's a pretty good pairing. I'd like to see them get another guy to play with McAvoy and keep Carlo and Lindholm together for another couple of years. I'd like to see that, because I think they do okay together. I do. I think Lindholm, interestingly enough, has had a better defensive season than offensive season this year. I think he's been pretty solid defensively.
He's been very
hit
solid
a ton.
No,
and he doesn't. And he's not physical, but he's been good positionally, defensively this season, much better than typical, I think. And maybe that has something to do with playing with Carlo, because Carlo is so steady defensively. So, but I think you're right. I think the Montgomery factor, whether it's system or it's just the way he coaches him, has been a really good positive for Brandon. All right, chirp number 3.